Welcome back, everyone. It feels like only yesterday I was telling you about New England serial killer Gary Schaefer and his pudgy little stomach. And if you thought he sucked, just wait for today's subject matter, which honestly, I think we kind of jump right into today. I doubt I have anything else of importance to talk about, really. Oh, except I did reach out to a graphic designer friend of mine, or a friend of mine who does graphic design, and I had them kind of revamp my whatchamacallit podcast background logo thingy-mabobber. I'm really excited to debut one of those. I'm having a hard time picking which one is best. Anyways, that will be happening shortly. And as I promised you in the last episode, we will be heading overseas today. Unless you're already over the sea, then hello. It's nice to see you. Germany has been a staple of mine so far for this podcast, but now we're branching out a little bit into Russia, specifically Moscow. Without further ado, my name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. I'm sure 99% of you, if not most of you, or all of you, I guess that would be going backwards, if not all of you, have at some point heard the name I'm about to say. So here's to the classics. Today I bring you the Chessboard Killer. Russian monster Alexander Pichushkin, I believe I'm saying that properly, aka the Chessboard Killer, is a serial killer convicted of 48 murders between 1992 and 2006, but has confessed to at least 60. Born on April 9th, 1974, little old Alex here had a mysterious and pretty gloomy childhood. Few things are actually known about his early years. Alexander's father abandoned their family as a baby, and he continued to live with his mother and grandfather, who acted as his dad, in a small apartment only a 6-minute walk to an area called Bitsa Park. And this will be important later on, so remember that. At the age of 4, everything only seemed to worsen for the boy. While playing outside one afternoon, Alexander fell backward off of a swing, hurting himself, and then the swing proceeded to swing back and smack him directly in the forehead as well. Doctors maintain that this incident as a little boy caused him frontal lobe damage, and due to the young age, was more greatly affected than he would have been if he were even a year or two older. Almost immediately, the once friendly boy started acting more aggressively and impulsively. Unaware of how to deal with his newfound behavioral issues, his mother sent him off to a school for children with intellectual disabilities. Alexander would continue to be bullied in and outside of class throughout his adolescence and into his teenage years, which only heightened this aggression of his. It was around 17 or 18 that Alexander finally found a hobby in playing chess. It was his first and only activity he seemed to enjoy. Alexander would join the elderly men down the road in Bitsa Park to play alongside them. As he learned more and more about chess, he realized he could control and channel his anger and impulses into these games and learning about the game. But that would only help for so long. Right around the time he finished high school, his grandfather passed away, tearing apart any sense of control that he had in his life. Quote, according to reports, the death of his grandfather greatly affected Pichushkin. In an effort to both dull the pain of the loss, as well as to calm his severe aggressive tendencies, he began to consume large quantities of vodka. You know how those Russians like their vodka. He continued to play chess both at home and in Bitsa Park, now joining the other men in drinking vodka, though, unlike them, he could play without being greatly affected by the alcohol. It was at this time that Alexander began to develop a more sinister hobby that, at the time, remained unknown to anyone. Whenever he knew he was going to come into contact with children, he would take a video camera along and proceed to threaten them. On one occasion that has since been made public, he held a young child by one leg, upside down, and said to the camera, "You are in my power now. I'm going to drop you from the window, and you will fall 15 meters to your death." He then watched these videos repeatedly over and over to reaffirm his power. However, by 1992, this practice had become insufficient to satisfy his urges. End quote. What the fuck? I understand, like, teasing a younger sibling, maybe a foot or two off of the ground, but that is straight up demented. Keep in mind, he's only 18 years old, just doing this to kids a few years younger than him, dangling them off balconies and recording it. That same year, in 1992, Alexander committed his first murder. He told his friend Mikhail, Mikhail, to meet him at Bitsa Park to discuss a plan that he'd come up with. Alexander told his friend that he planned to kill 64 people, one for every square on the chessboard. Thankfully, Mikhail wasn't insane and did not agree to help carry out this plan. Pissed, Alexander decided to then kill his friend first, making him number one of 64. Attacked from behind and then strangled to death, his friend would be tossed into a sewer drain, or quote, friend, and then left for dead, as Alexander went home to his mother for dinner. Police would find his body shortly after, and witnesses would place Alexander as the last person to see him alive. Police arrested the 18-year-old in connection to the murder, but without any proper evidence, they had to let him go. Investigators were so close to putting a stop to this guy from the very start, but unfortunately were unable to. This close encounter with law enforcement seemingly scared Alexander quite a bit, as he took nearly a decade off from murder. And then, in 2001, began what is sometimes referred to as his sewers period. Quote, on May 17th, 2001, Alexander was in Bitsa Park playing chess with a 52-year-old man named Yevgeny Pronin. At the end of their game, Alexander invited Pronin to take a walk with him, claiming it was the anniversary of his dog's death and that he wanted to visit the grave in Bitsa Park. Side note here, Bitsa Park is massive. It's like tens of acres. So there's a chess part, a foresty part, a walking part. It's large. Okay, back to it. Pronin accompanied him to an isolated area in Bitsa Park, whereupon Alexander pulled out a bottle of vodka and offered him a drink. This man made a toast to the dog, after which Alexander struck Pronin in the head with the bottle. Once Pronin was dead, Pichushkin threw his body into a nearby well. Between May 2001 and September of 2005, Alexander attacked 36 victims. 3 of those victims survived their injuries. Pichushkin would approach his victims in Bitsa Park, the vast majority of them elderly or homeless people, offer to share a drink of vodka, and then kill them, typically by striking the back of their skull with a hammer or a bottle, although he was also alleged to have pushed his victims into the sewage canal to drown. Occasionally, he would then sign the corpse by impaling the victim's skull with sticks he found nearby. End quote. Man, chess and sticks to the brain. A balance in life I believe we should and could all strive for. Typically, if someone has killed over 30 people in a 4-year time frame, there would be a massive, never-ending manhunt nationwide. But this is Russia 20 years ago, and his victims, although aplenty, are somewhat strategically chosen. The media notoriously tends to overlook or not care about the homeless population, and this case is no different. It's one of the many reasons he remained free for so many years. And then, after his sewer period, came his, quote, open period. This refers both to the change in his MO and how he would leave the bodies. Maybe he had become bored with his old ways. Maybe his confidence was growing, or maybe he wanted to tease law enforcement. But during the last 2 years of his murder spree in 2005 and 2006, Alexander would simply leave the bodies where he killed them. Many times just out in the open air. He would kill them with repeated hammer blows to the head and proceed to add his signature to the corpse. This time around, most notably, by shoving vodka bottles into the gaping wounds in their skulls that he had created previously. Ewy! And the craziest part about this open period of his is that 10 of his victims lived in the same 4-building complex where he lived, literally killing his neighbors. Jeez Lewis. And still, investigators could not pin down who the killer was. Dozens of bodies in bits apart, multiple victims from the same apartment, and plenty of chess connections across the board, no pun intended. Like, all within essentially a 3 to 4 mile radius. Less than, like a 2-mile radius. But it wouldn't be until his final murder in 2006 that Alexander Pichushkin, aka the Chessboard Killer, would be apprehended. Quote, in June 2006, Alexander offered to go for a walk with his 36-year-old coworker, Marina Moskolyova. Though she was reportedly suspicious of him, Marina agreed to go. Before she left, she wrote a note to her son, letting him know that she was with Alexander, and left his phone number. Pichushkin was aware of this note, but was undeterred. A Moscow metro ticket found in her possession led authorities to review surveillance tape footage from the metro system, where she was filmed just hours before her death, walking on a platform accompanied by Alexander. Once apprehended, Pichushkin led police officers to the scenes of many of his crimes in Bitsa Park and demonstrated a keen recollection of how the murders were committed. He was filmed reenacting his crimes in great detail, a process which is a regular part of Russian criminal investigation. Alexander also revealed that some of the murders he committed were not done using his preferred method, the hammer blows to the back of the head, but by throwing his victims down into the sewer lines beneath Bitsa Park. End quote. Alexander Pichushkin's terror spree had finally come to a close. After 15 years in the making and countless bodies, they finally caught the Chessboard Killer. While searching his apartment after the arrest, investigators found something disturbing. Quote, Pichushkin kept a small notebook in his pocket on which he had sketched out a chessboard. Each square had a date written in it that corresponded to one of his alleged murders. At the time of his arrest, the 33-year-old had filled in approximately 61 of the 64 squares on the chessboard. He later admitted that once he completed the board, he would have continued to kill indefinitely. Do you think he would have just started a new board over? Like, oh, I completed this one. Now let's make a purple chessboard and go for 64 again. Or simply scrap the chessboard idea entirely and go full Rambo. Either way, I'm glad we were unable to find out, and they put a stop to it. Pichushkin's confession was aired on Russian television. In it, he discussed at length his need to kill. He said, for me, a life without murder is like a life without food. Showing no remorse, he later argued that he should be charged with more murders, keeping with his claim of killing approximately 61 people. He said, I thought it would be unfair to forget about the other 11 people or so during his 2007 trial. And speaking of the trial, it was a cakewalk. After confessing to nearly 60 murders without remorse and admitting to wanting to kill more, Alexander was eventually convicted on 48 of those counts and sentenced to life in prison with 15 years served in solitary. And then this dimwit had the audacity to appeal the sentence, claiming it was too harsh and requesting a 25-year sentence instead. Yeah, okay, you goof. As of today, Alexander remains behind bars with no hope of ever setting foot outside again. Although, quote, in 2014, a Russian woman only identified as Natalia alleged her love for the incarcerated Alexander. Natalia, who worked at a children's shop in Siberia, first became aware of Pichushkin when she saw a program highlighting his crimes. She spoke to a Russian news agency about their love, saying she and Alexander communicated frequently, and she was more proud of her groom as if he was a Hollywood star. Natalia said it was love at first sight, and Alexander himself told journalists he had proposed to Natalia. However, the Russian prison system barred the two from continuing their correspondences, did not allow the wedding, but yet Natalia still maintains her devotion to the Chessboard Killer. End quote. That I do not understand. Why want to be with someone who could and probably wants to kill you at any point throughout your relationship without any discerning reason whatsoever? Like, honey, could I have some toast? And the toast is burned, and then you get a vodka bottle to the fucking eardrum? Plus, he's ugly. If you look up a photo of this guy, I swear, he looks just like an ugly version of Quentin Tarantino. I promise you. But whatever. That's not my life. If Natalia wants to be with that guy, then so yeah. Okay, that is all I have for you wonderful, beautiful folks today. Another fucking episode in the books. I will see y'all next week for, I believe, another international serial killer. I almost said superstar. Serial killer. Thanks again for all of your eardrums. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. I love you.